Hi everybody, it's Crystal. Welcome to my channel, Bagoday Crochet. So I hope everybody is doing well and staying safe. So today I have a stitch tutorial for you. Extremely easy, just a one row repeat, and it does look the same on both sides. It really doesn't, I always say that, it really doesn't get much better than that. Looking the same on both sides, one row repeat, and you will have to know single crochet and like this little cluster, which is super easy. So that's about it. So, and as you can see, it's, oh excuse me, it's a semi-solid, more solid than not solid, 80% solid stitch. It's not really a yarn or anything, if you were to ask me. So do you guys want to go ahead and get started? All right, you can see the corners relatively pretty straight. Here too, you can see that. So use it for what you like, but for now, let's get started on the stitch tutorial. For that particular piece there that you've seen, I'm using a Red Heart Super Saver Ombre, which is a number 4 weight yarn. I'm 100% acrylic, and the color that I'm using is called Jazzy. All right. And then I'm going to be using a size I, which is a 5.5 millimeter crochet hook. All right, why don't we begin? It's done in any even number of stitches. So depending on what you're making, whether it be scarf, blanket, top, whatever, you chain your chain for as long as you want it to be in any even number. All right, and once you got that down, we're going to do a single crochet in the second stitch from our hook. So we don't count this one that's on our hook. So 1, 2, and we're going to single crochet in that second stitch. And then we're going to put 1 single crochet into every stitch for the length of the chain. Just like this. So row 1 is 1 single crochet in every stitch until you get to the end of the row. All right, so I made it to the end of row 1, and now we're going to start row 2 by working a chain of 2. Now don't do it extremely tight because we will be working back into this chain. So we're going to chain 2, and we're going to turn our work. So we're going to work into the second stitch of this chain 2 that we did, and we're going to work in the front loop of it. So this right here, here's my chain 2, 1, 2, here's the front loop of it. What we're going to do is not yarn over and go into that just one front loop of the second stitch of our chain 2 that we just made. Okay, just one loop is what we're going in. And we're going to draw up a loop like that. And now you have 2 loops on your hook. And now we're going to go into the first stitch of the row. We're going to yarn over this time and go into that stitch. And we're going to draw up a loop. You'll have 4 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over and go through all 4 and chain 1. Just like that. All right, now we're going to start the repeat of row 2. Now without yarning over, we're going to go into the next stitch, but we're just going into the front loop only. So if you look closely, you can see the stitch has 2 loops. The one closest to us is called the front loop, and the one furthest away is called the back loop. So this particular stitch here will be working in the front loop for part of the stitch. All right, so don't yarn over, go into the front loop of the next stitch and draw up a loop. And you see you got 2 loops on your hook. Now we're going to yarn over and go into the next stitch going through both loops just like normal. Draw up a loop. 4 loops on your hook, yarn over and go through all 4 and chain 1. And that's the cluster that we're going to be using for this whole particular pattern. So again, we're going to go into the next stitch into the front loop without yarning over. So front loop only, and we're going to draw up a loop. like that. And now we have 2 loops on our hook. And now we're going to yarn over this time and go into the next stitch going through both loops and draw up a loop. 4 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over and go through all 4 and chain 1. And then we're going to do that again. So next stitch, do not yarn over, go through the front loop only of that stitch and draw up a loop, 2 loops there. And then we're going to yarn over and go into the next stitch going through both loops this time, draw up a loop, 4 loops on our hook, yarn over and go through all 4 and chain 1. So we're just going to keep repeating this pattern until we get to the end of the row. So one more time, without yarning over, we go into the next stitch but the front loop of it only, and we draw up a loop, and then we're going to yarn over this time and go into the next stitch and go through both loops of that stitch and draw up a loop, 4 loops, yarn over and go through all 4 and chain 1. So I'm going to continue this pattern until I get to the end of the row. Alright, I'm coming to the end of row 2, and I just did that little cluster. I'm going to chain 1. You'll have 2 stitches left, so you want to do one last one of these clusters. So don't yarn over, go into the next stitch, front loop only, draw up a loop, and then we're going to yarn over and go into the back loop, or sorry, yarn over and go through into the last loop, last stitch, both loops, just like we did before. Draw up a loop, 4 loops, and yarn over and go through all 4. All right, now don't chain yet, but that will end row 2 of this stitch. Now row 3 is the repeat row, and it's pretty much the same as row 2, but what we're going to do is start off with a chain of 2. So remember, this is the repeat row, so 1 row repeat, chain 2, and turn our work. So in this chain 2 and in the second stitch of it, the front loop, so this just 1 loop right here, and truthfully it doesn't even have to be exact, you can't really even tell on the ends in case you missed the loop. So without yarning over, in the front loop of that second stitch of this chain 2, go into it and draw up a loop, and then we're going to yarn over and go into this next stitch, which is actually the top of the cluster, go into both loops on that, draw up a loop, 4 loops, yarn over and go through all 4 and chain 1, and we're going to repeat this again. So we're going to go into the front loop of the next stitch. It's actually the chain 1 that we did from the previous row. Without yarning over, just go into the front loop of that chain 1. See that? Draw up a loop, and now we're going to yarn over and go into the next stitch going through both loops, and if you look, it's the top of this cluster here. Go through both loops there, draw up a loop, 4 loops again, yarn over and go through all 4 and chain 1, and this is what we're going to repeat until we get to the end of the row. So the next stitch is actually right here, that front loop of it only. It's a little tight, but go through that front loop. It's the chain 1 from the previous row. Remember, don't yarn over on this first part. Draw up a loop, and then we yarn over on the second part, and you can see the stitch here is a bit bigger. Go through both loops of that one, draw up a loop, 4 loops, yarn over and go through all 4 and chain 1. Again, the next stitch, if you flip it to the top, you'll be able to see it right there. Don't yarn over, go through that front loop of that stitch, and remember that one might be tight. Draw up a loop, and then we yarn over and go into the next stitch. If you look at the top, you'll be able to see it, or you can kind of see it's just bigger than the other one. Go through both loops of that one, draw up, 4 loops, yarn over and go through all 4 and chain 1. So we're going to repeat this pattern until we get to the end of the row. So one more time, if you look at the top, you can see the next stitch right here. We just go through the front loop of that stitch only without yarning over, and draw up a loop. And then we're going to yarn over and go into the next stitch, going through both loops. Draw up and then yarn over. You got 4 loops, yarn over and go through all 4 and chain 1. All right, let me show you one more time. If you flip your work up, you can clearly see the stitches. So this next stitch here, don't yarn over, front loop only, draw up a loop. Then we're going to yarn over and go into the top of the next stitch through both loops. So this one right here, it's like that. Draw up a loop, 4 loops, yarn over and go through all 4 and chain 1, and then we're going to repeat this until we get to near the end of the row, and I'll be back up with you. Alright, so I'm coming to the end of row 3, and I just did my last little cluster and I chained 1, and I need to do 1 more here on the end. I'm going to show you what I do to try to make the rows look a little bit straighter on each end. Alright, to end it, so we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go into the next stitch without yarning over, front loop only, and draw up a loop. And then we're going to yarn over, but instead of going into this last stitch, I go into the top, this chain 2 here on the end, this spot right here. Now you don't have to do that. You can actually yarn over and just go into the top of the last stitch and draw up like that. But for me, I feel like it makes the row straighter if you kind of go into that. I got to make it hard on you on that. If you yarn over into, it's an extremely tight space. When we did that chain 2 there, when we do it at the beginning of the row, here it is. It's real tight. Go into it and then draw up a loop, 4 loops, yarn over and go through all 4, just like that. And that ends row 3, and that is the repeat row. So again, you would just chain 2 and turn your work, and you would repeat row 3. The same thing that we just did. So in the front loop of the second stitch of this chain we just made, we go into the front loop of it, draw up, and then we're going to yarn over and go into both loops of the next stitch. Draw up, 4 loops on your hook, yarn over, go through all 4 and chain 1 and repeat. So if you look here, you can see the next stitch. Remember, it's a little tight because it's that chain 1 from the previous row, but without yarning over, we're going to go into the front loop of it and draw up a loop, and then we're going to yarn over and go into the top of the next stitch, going through both loops. 4 loops, yarn over and go through all 4 and chain 1. So I'm just repeating what I did on row 3 all the way to the end. So I'm going to go ahead and finish it to the end, and I'll show you one more time how I end the row. Alright, I'm coming to the end of row 4, which is just a repeat of row 3, and one more time I'll show you how I end it. So I just did my last cluster here, chained 1, and I have to do 1 more. So into this stitch here, it's kind of tight, remember, go into the front loop of it only and draw up a loop, and then we're going to yarn over, and instead of going into the top of the last stitch, I like to go in this extremely little bitty tight space on the end, the little chain that we did that we do at the beginning of the row. So I yarn over and I wiggle, 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 wiggle until I get into it. Well, both loops of it. So it's wiggle, wiggle. I know, I always gotta make it hard. Remember, you don't have to do that. You can go into the top of the regular stitch if you want. I just try to do things to make the rows as straight as possible. There we go. And then we drop a loop, and then we yarn over and go through all 4 loops, chain 2, turn your work, and start again. That's it. So you just keep repeating row 3, and then after a while it starts to look like this. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful stitch. So if you enjoyed my tutorial, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I really appreciate that. It is free to subscribe. And if you look in the description box, you'll find a playlist of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of free crochet tutorials. They're all there for you to enjoy. I have anything that you could ever want to make, and surely I have multiples of them. And hit that like button as well, and leave me a comment below. All right, I'll see you guys on my next video. Okay, bye guys.